Funky Politics.
Funky Politics Show.
Funky Politics.
Funky Politics.
Funky Politics.
Funky Politics. Powered by MLGW. Memphis Light, Gas, and Water.
Bass.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. Our presenting sponsor is MLGW, Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, where we have the absolute, I want to say the absolute best drinking water in this country, right here of the USA. You know, that's what we talk about right here on Funky Politics. I am DC, one of the wonderful hosts of this wonderful program, and I'm sitting in right here next to my co-host, Doc Ward. Doc, how are you, sir?
I'm something like a phenomenon. Funky Politics is the show I'm on. Real Right and Funk is my show's platform. You can't contain us because we're fully grown.
Wow.
Grown, man. And because it's cutting its own like Donkey Kong.
Oh, God, not Donkey Kong. You crazy, man. You out of here.
Speaking of which,
what you got?
I'm going to no-look past this over to my co-host, my lovely co-host, LT, lovely LaTanya.
Thank you. Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's up, LaTanya Robinson? How you doing?
Just glad to be here in the presence of excellence tonight.
Well, I thank you for that. And then DC's here, too.
You know, I disdain this show. But anyway, you know what? I tell you what. You know, Funky Politics has been around for some time. We always like to keep it real right, and we always like to keep it fresh and funky here on this show. And you know what, man? Speaking of funky and fresh, I don't know if he's fresh or not. This guy sat in the Oval Office so much, he's creating a stink bug up there, man.
Who's that? The president?
Colt 45.
No, he's not creating a stink bug. Folks just leaving.
Oh, yeah. It was somebody's kind of funked up the room, and I think, did somebody do something?
Well, no, but one thing about it, though, I hear right now that he is absolutely S to the I to the C to the K. Because he's lost hope. Couldn't keep hope alive.
Couldn't keep hope alive. Hope Hicks go?
Hope Hicks got you sick. Now you gotta leave because she's leaving. Well, she's the one that said. She said, "Look, I'm not gonna even lie to y'all because I've done it enough. No, I'm not gonna even lie to y'all. I told white lies for the president." And my question is this: you know, when she was first put into office, first assumed office, was appointed to office, everyone talked about what a great press secretary she was.
Yeah.
What press secretary gets out here and admittedly says, "I tell white lies," but believes somehow that people are supposed to delineate between the two and go, "Oh, it's just white lies." You know, it's not the black ones.
No, it's just lies, right?
It's just white lies.
As my grandmother would say, you know, she hadn't lived long enough. That whole keep living.
Yeah. Oh, she probably hasn't. 28, 29 years old.
29. You know, she still has some living to do, and she didn't know any better, for lack of a better term.
Well, we already know that she has some issues with discretion because of the mate that she chose. You know.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna even get into that now.
Speaking of the mate that's been chosen. we've got I don't want to say matriarch, but we've got a person in Memphis and Shelby County who is the chair of the Shelby County Democratic Party.
Okay.
A young brother by the name of Corey Strong, who is he's laying it down for us, man. He's gonna walk us through this thing that we talk about democratic politics, and not only in the nation but also locally. You know what I'm saying, man? So I ain't got no problem with that, y'all. I got no problem with it at all.
None at all. Good, and it's gonna give us the agenda for what the Democratic Party can do, not just to get in office,
but to keep it,
but to stay in office.
Sure.
And also what you can do as a listener to become engaged in the Democratic Party process.
Wow. Yeah. And all of that, where y'all? Right here on Funky Politics on the Kazuki Network.
And those ain't no white lies.
A very strange reaction. The more I see, the more I do. Baby.
Funky Politics.
Plus one lip sync champion, Latasha Peoples.
Staring in the mirror, gonna change my ways. I wanna make Memphis a better place. I see a neighbor in need, but what can be done? Instead of buying shoes or a pretty dress with just $1 a month, you can help the rest. It starts with you. Plus one.
You know, giving back through Plus One will make a difference for families in crisis.
It starts with you. Plus one. Grandma's message couldn't have been any clearer. If You wanna change Memphis? Look in the mirror. It starts with you. Plus One.
I remember when we got help from Plus One.
And now we're helping others.
Hey, Memphis, you can make a change.
You too can make a difference.
This is Corey Strong, straight out of Memphis 10. You listen to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. I'm DC, one of the fabulous hosts of this show, right along with LaTanya L.T. Robinson. Hello, LaTanya.
Hey, DC, how's it going today?
Oh, God, it's going. That's all I can say. It's going.
It's going, huh?
It's going. And, of course, we wouldn't be a show without Doc Ward. Doc, what's up, baby?
As long as you know, and I'm going to tell you why, man.
Tell me why.
Burro and a stallion sitting on a hill. The stallion said, I can run circles around you, leave you standing still. You don't stand a chance because I was born to run and fly. I'll be out ahead and finished before you get to try. The burro said, impressive. Seems you're built for speed. But after the race is over, are you prepared to lead? Are you prepared to carry the burdens and solve the problems or feed the need? That's why I'm the symbol of progress, and you're just a symbol for speed.
Wow. And that's the burro, correct?
That's the burro, the symbol of our great Democratic Party. Nationally.
I got you. The burro. I thought it was the
burro.
It's burro. Okay.
Burro.
You know, speaking of the burro, we've got the lead burro in Shelby County, Tennessee, right here with us. Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't say lead burro. I didn't say the other one.
Lead burro.
Corey, I didn't call you lead ass. We got Corey Strong, who happens to be the chairman of the Shelby County Democratic Party, a young brother who is doing some wonderful things here in Memphis and Shelby County. Welcome to Funky Politics, young brother.
Man,
how you doing?
Appreciate it. I'm doing good. Definitely in the building. I was waiting for him to take us to the cross. He started.
No, we want you to take us to the cross.
We've been to his church before. Yeah. It's not pretty, but anyway. You know, Corey, we wanted to talk to you about the Democratic Party and the influences it has on this upcoming 2018 election and the sustainability of those going forward. But first of all, give us a little bit of who you are. Yeah. And tell us, the particular role that you play with the county party, which we all know. But also, then let's segue into where are the Democrats now, and where will they be on May 1, August 4th, and hopefully in November of 2018.
So I'm Memphis resident, born and raised here. Left home and went to the Naval Academy. Did 8 years on active duty. Wow. I'm actually still a reservist. So blessed to put on the rank of commander in September. So I some of my classmates, what we're trying to do.
Thank you for your service, sir.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's a blessing to be able to do it. So did that, came back home, picked up an MBA on the way back home, came here to law school, said, hey, whatever it is I'm going to do in my community, I think that's the route to do it. And somehow found my way into politics, took a detour to Afghanistan in 2015 and 16, spent a year over there. Mm-hmm. But back in 14, elected to the state executive committee. I was on the county executive committee for the Democratic Party and said, hey, let me see, where I can get involved. And there was an opportunity here to kind of reform the party and do some good work. And so I threw my name in the hat this past summer, and they handed it over to me. And so having that opportunity right before a big election season is something that it's a lot of responsibility, but I think I'm up to the task. And so yeah, my mom says she wouldn't do this job for all the tea in China, but
well, let me stop you right there. You said Afghanistan in 15. Yeah. So do you have any similarities to Memphis and Shelby? No, I'm just joking. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's really good, very organically.
Yeah.
Not by any recommendation, lineage, or anything else. You just wanted to volunteer. You just wanted to be a part. And now you're on the cusp of being part of something really special, perhaps, in the upcoming elections.
That's the word.
I'm not going to say. I mean, there may be some Republicans listening.
Well, I'm hopeful that he'll be successful as well as some Republicans.
Where there you go. But looking at it this way, it seems like the agenda or the opportunity has been just dropped and continues to be dropped in the lap of the Democratic Party. Every week there's something new. Yeah. If there's not a cabinet member or a staff member of the Trump organization that's leaving, if there's not an initiative or a law that's coming about that people are determining is not meeting the needs of citizens, if there's not a controversy that's coming out that the Republicans are on the wrong side of, most recently the issue with gun control, it seems like this nation is begging right now for Democrats to lead. you should be tripping over yourselves in agenda items as to how you're going to roll that out, not just in the states that are blue states traditionally, but red states too. So can I ask you, what exactly are you all focusing on so that you can come out with some type of sustainable agenda for the upcoming elections on all state, federal, and local levels?
So a couple things. First, at the national level, yeah, you're right. People are tripping over to hand it to Democrats. And I'll be honest, I've had the conversations with the national. We're still trying to, sometimes you got to leave in the past, right? Sometimes you make a mistake. You just got to chalk it up. I made a mistake and move forward.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel like sometimes at the national level, they keep trying to make up for mistakes they made in the past. And at some point, you just got to say, hey, I did it. You know what I mean? It happened in the military. I had a CO. He said, look, you messed up, just come tell me and tell me what the plan is to fix it and just move on. But we in a day and age where people don't want to raise their hands. So, but I could tell you what we're doing locally here, because all politics are local, is my focus is to ensure that what we're doing as a party reflects the citizenry of this area, right?
Okay.
So we're not talking about who's the most charismatic person. We're not talking about who's got the oldest family lineage.
Sure.
We're not talking about, what might scare some voters. I am trying to take the party directly to people in Memphis. And I'm going to tell you, you talk about nationally, locally, so thirsty. You have no idea how thirsty these people are for someone that's actually going to address it. The citizens are for someone to actually address their issues. And so what I'm trying to do is two things. One is to ensure that we as a party get some credibility with the citizens, that we're going to come to you and discuss issues. We're not talking about who got elected here, where, to and fro, but we're actually going to address your issues. But also in the background right now, we're putting together our policy platform. So when these officials get elected, that they're on the same page with us, that this is what we're going to hold you to.
Hold them accountable.
This is where we're going to be. And so in 2019, we got the Memphis election, which is nonpartisan. Perfect time for me to go to county commission and even the Memphis City Council and say, hey, these are the things we expect you to be doing. And I want to set that framework up so that when we get down the line a little bit further and a little bit here, that we know that there is someone that's responsible for the accountability. I think the party's lost that. They just do the elections. We have a little celebration, drink a little champagne, move on, as opposed to being there in the forefront of people's issues. And if we do that, people will respond and we'll be able to answer that call.
Gotcha.
You're listening to Funky Politics here on the Kazukian Network.
So, Corey, I think that brings up a good point. You talked about the people's issues and their concerns and things like that. I vote based on what's happening in my house, right? And
Exactly.
I want to know that there's someone out there working on the things that are important for me. So what are the constituents telling you that's needed in the party for them to feel like they're a part of it and that they have a voice?
So I can't summarize everything everywhere, but I can say three things that I've seen consistently. Jobs, healthcare, education. You talked about your household, you go to work, your kids go to school, and you try to stay healthy in doing those two things. Those are the things that are most important to people right now that I've seen most consistently on campaign literature, that are the big issues that people discuss. Yeah, guns come up, but it's not a one vote issue. Sure. There's some other things that come up, but those are really the big three. And when healthcare costs are skyrocketing, whether it's education being provided in an appropriate level at the K through 12 level, or people being able to afford it at the college level, and when there's clearly a move for our government, really for my entire lifetime, to move all of our ducks in the basket of private industry. Labor unions are being eviscerated, particularly in the South where we're right to work.
Sure.
And there literally seems to be no desire, when we were our greatest country and our greatest generation, where we said we're going to all put our money together in taxes and we're going to sow it into people to make the country better. We're going to invest in roads. We're going to invest in education, land grant colleges. We're going to invest in our farmers. We're going to invest in those networks. We said we're going to put our money together, and that's the best place to invest is in ourselves. And at some point we decided the best place to invest it is with people who already got money. And so when you look at those three things, people have a government and really a society that's kind of turned their back on them. And so turning and going back to people and investing in them is a kind of a common theme in all three of those.
Now, let me bring you some. I want to go a little bit nationally, but the national politics has a lot of direct effect on the local. So what about those parties out there, those folks out there that says that, is the party caving on DACA? Has the party did it cave on the tax reform piece? We know,
or better yet, I mean,
Well,
interrupt you,
go ahead, please.
but what is the actual stance?
Well, I mean,
that
that's
they
what I'm going,
are
yeah.
taking, you know,
Yeah, because I'm
we know
hearing a whole lot.
Yeah,
You're
because
right.
we know that the Democratic Party spends a lot of time talking about what the president is not doing or how inefficient it is. But what is the actual position that they're taking in counter? They're suffering from the same problem that the Republicans had when Barack Obama was the president.
Exactly.
It's easy to say that this doesn't work and that doesn't work.
Exactly.
But
Talking
what
against what
is
the
the
president
plan that you have?
So
in the
going
alternative?
forward,
Right.
we know that there is a plan for DACA. Number one, we heard, but now we'd like to see it. And our constituents in Memphis and Shelby County, and not only here, but also the same thing that happens to those folks who are Dreamers and DACA folks. It affects people in Birmingham. It affects people in Chicago. So what is the national party seeing about where do we go next with DACA that you've talked about?
They don't have a clear direction. That's
Oh,
just the
God.
reality. I'm not, and I mean,
and you can't make this stuff up, folks. You can't make it up. If it ain't
and I
there.
mean, here's the thing.
Yeah.
There's clearly it's the same thing that happened when Barack Obama was elected. There is a fight over who controls conservative values.
Right.
And that fight never was resolved, and that's why you got 45, right? Like that's just the reality.
Colt 45 is what we call them here.
So I wouldn't even give them that.
them.
I like to drink Colt 45, so I don't know if I'm giving that.
Wow.
But
it's cheap.
Y'all like that high grade.
I think
I'll take them all liquor.
You are a mentee of Billy D. Williams.
Let me tell you, sir, it's a good drink. I'll tell you that from my days out there.
So we're having the
smooth
same we're having the same kind of existential crisis on which direction we're going to go, and unfortunately, the people that fund the party don't necessarily want the things or are willing to support the things that a lot of the citizens want, and so the party's going to have to make a decision: are we going to go with the voters, or are we going to go with the money? Yeah. And at least at the local level, as I talk to a lot of people locally, a lot of people that are winning those elections, a lot of people that are in those Democratic strong bases, particularly in the South, they're saying we're going to be with the people. And so I think you see that drawn out. But then you see blips like what's going on in the primary in Houston, where there's an infight between the party and the progressive candidate and the other candidate, and et cetera, et cetera. So that happens, right? That's happening. But I think overwhelmingly at local political elections, you see these Jackson, Birmingham, Atlanta, New Orleans. Like you see it, Charlotte. Like you see it. And so at some point, when the national party comes to those areas for those federal candidates that are running those areas or those local Democratic parties, hey, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
But even in cities
you're listening to Funky Politics powered by the Kazuki Network. Go ahead.
Even in cities like Houston, where you have in that particular district, you're not going to lose that district. I mean, it's still there's going to be infighting, but you're not going to lose it to a Republican.
But no, you're not. But the trouble with it is the progressives, and then you got this other part of the I think there's certain factions that are going to hurt the Democratic Party. You've still got this Bernie piece that nobody wants to address. You got a lot of butt-hurt people out there. I hate to use the term, but they're butt-hurt over the fact that Bernie didn't win. And
more importantly, that now they understand empirically that the election or the primary was engineered against him.
Well, and that's what they're thinking. So now you've still got a lot of those folks locally here who are they going to stick with the Democratic Party no matter who that Democrat candidate is?
So a couple things. Yes, absolutely. I would say, first of all, I was a Bernie supporter in primary, so I would say that straight up. And a lot of people say black people support Bernie, except for when he got the guy elected in Jackson or he got the guy elected in Birmingham. Like, it's a lot of young black folks driving for Bernie because he's talking the same thing we talking, jobs and opportunity, because that's what we need. Like, we can start asking for statues to come down, and that stuff is cute, and we can stop calling me the N-word, that's cute, but I need a job, and I need to provide for my family. And that's the message he was bringing. But what I would say is, I'm not necessarily concerned about that, because if you go to issues that people are concerned and let the voters drive what you're doing, they'll tell you what to say. They'll tell you what to advocate for. They'll tell you what administrative policies and legislative policies to put into play. But when you thinking because you know what's best for other folks, they'll remind you real quick, we ain't gonna vote for you because this is what we want. And I think that's something that the party needs to be very clear on. Is you got to go to the voters and ask them what they want.
But along those same lines, going to the voters and give them what they want, can they really fund and sustain the party with their donations? You got your local donations and you have your big dollar donations from the billionaires and stuff. And how do we get the interest of both to converge on what the strategy for the Democratic Party should be? I
think it's going to be interesting. I don't necessarily see right now that there's a clear roadmap on how to connect the two. But I will say this. Phil Bredesen just went to his Senate campaign. So he's out in front of Marsha Blackburn right now. And so Tennessee's going from, leans Republican to a toss-up state because of him and his lead. He's coming out with a hashtag right now, 5 for Phil. So if you see an affluent politician who's clearly going to get big dollars to come in, taking that posture of my initial fundraising push is 5 for Phil, hashtag 5 for Phil, Phil Bredesen, $5. $5, right? And Phil's centering that around policies. Barack Obama, look, you can't use him as an example of how to run elections. Yeah, he went and people were inspired by hope. You're going to have to drill that down to something that's actually palatable to people. And I think the candidates are getting the message. Even if the party's not getting, the candidates are getting the message of, I have to give something that people can digest. And they can digest it, they'll give me a little money to help me get across the finish line. So I think you see the smart, savvy policy, and there's a lot of DC consultants that are helping them out. They're saying do both, right? So he's making those pitches, but he's also appealing to the average man. And I think candidates getting that and driving the policy is going to be help really move us in that direction.
Sure.
You are listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network.
Riffin' on Jazz.
This next gentleman we're talking about has an unforgettable voice.
My sugar is so refined.
Jazz was the happiest. Al Calloway went to my school. Oh, really? Yes, he's not an alum because he didn't graduate. He had some gigs to do.
Riffin' on Jazz on the Kazukian Network. Kazukian Funky Politics.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network. I'm DC, one of the hosts of this wonderful show. Sitting in here, I've got the lovely Latanya L.T. Robinson. Hey, Latanya.
Hey, I feel official now with you calling me LT. I'm part of the team, right?
No, not at all. But anyway, we've got Doc. Yes, you are part of the team. I love Latanya. Doc Ward, what's up,
Man,
Doc?
that was messed up.
I'm
man.
sorry.
You didn't say you're fired. You said you're not hired.
We love this show, folks.
Still auditioning.
What's up, man? You all right?
I'm wonderful. We hanging out with the Funky Donkey.
The Funky Donkey?
The Funky Donkey.
Well, that's good.
On Funky Politics.
On Funky Politics?
Who's this Funky Donkey?
You know what? We have got a wonderful young man sitting in with us this evening, Corey Strong, who happens to be the chairman of the chief
the
in
Funky,
charge.
The Funky Donkey?
The funkiest chief in charge of the Shelby County Shelby County Democratic Party in Memphis and Shelby County, Tennessee. How are you, brother Corey? How are you?
I'm doing good. I need y'all to be my hype man. Like, hey, they don't do that no more, but you do that one to come out.
Hey, man.
Get everybody going.
The game is to be sold, not told.
You know what I mean? They don't do street teams no more. You know what I mean?
Not real street teams.
No, not real. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Let me tell you something.
There you go.
Brother Corey, we're talking today with you, and you're the chairman of the Shelby County Democratic Party, naval reservist, commander. Man, you've done it all, and you're a young brother too, by the way. Now, Naval Academy,
Annapolis.
Yeah. Annapolis, man.
The big place.
Midshipman.
So go check this out. Y'all heard that the USA soccer cheer, I believe that we will win.
Yes.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Go check out the story. Me and my boy J-Rod. J-Rod came up with it. He put me onto it. We made that thing big. So before it was USA Soccer back in 99, 2000.
Wow.
So go check it out. We just cut a CBS on that to let people know, like, Naval Academy is one of the biggest things out of there.
Wow.
There's a Puerto Rican brother from NY and me from Memphis that kind of put that print. So go check it out.
There you go.
See, that's what I'm talking. That's why we want to talk to you today about
all kind of funky
the
stuff.
Black, the brown, our women who are out there in the trenches, doing the hard work,
winning.
Yeah, they are winning.
All they do is win.
Win. All they do is win. And we want to talk to you a little bit about that right now, about the I guess the affects of the winning. And we've seen Keisha in Atlanta. We've seen Chuck Wade down in Jackson. We've seen a young lady in New Orleans. We've seen
Latoya Campbell.
Exactly.
Or
how do we sustain that?
Cantrell, excuse me.
Cantrell, yeah. How do we sustain it? How do we go for it? How do we get more of those folks, the black and brown and the women, in these offices?
So I think there's two roles to it, right? There's two pieces. The first thing is there has to be a commitment in these minority communities to mentor people. I don't know what happened at some point. I don't know if it was integration that caused it or whatever happened.
That's a good start.
We got sold that dream, and then we left people behind, and we didn't mentor them in that kind of connection, whether it was at church, whether it was in the community, in the school, whatever it was. So there has to be a sincere mentorship. But there also has to be a reception of the people wanting to run office for mentorship. So I look at the boy in look at Keisha in Atlanta, right?
Right.
Keisha was mentored by Kasim, but she made herself available. She supported. She did the work. Woodyard in Birmingham ran Hillary's campaign the year before to make himself approved, to get himself ready.
Right.
And so that's a message I have for a lot of people here is you want to show up last minute, and because you hear the word millennials, you ready to go, but you ain't done the work, right? You got to do the work.
But talk about the work. Talk about the work, because I think that's the part that a lot of people that want to get involved in politics miss. And we say the work and we move on, but the work really is. So talk about what that is and what that means.
So first of all, you're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network. Go ahead, Doc.
So as far as work is concerned, you need to do something that demonstrates that you're prepared for the office you're in, whether that's participate in a profession and set yourself aside, do something civically, or even if it's being involved on the ground politically, but doing the work, whether it's knocking on doors, engaging with people. People need to be able to look at you and what you've done and say, you know what, I see it, I smell it, okay, I'm with it, right? But if you show up and you say, you can deliver a message, but if people ain't ready to receive it because they haven't seen anything that proves you can do it, it's not going to happen. And so I say a lot of people, I'm about to finish my undergrad, but I think I'm going to win this office.
I'm running for mayor.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the issue. Yeah. So you have to do that work. And the age doesn't matter. I'm 36 years old, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What? JD, MBA, working on my third master's. I've managed people. I've had projects and done things in the military and the civilian world. Right. But the thing is that I've done the work, right? So if I decide to run for office one day, I've done the work. And there are other people like me. And a lot of those people are saying, hey, I'm going to go chase the money. And I don't blame them. You got to provide for your kids and, do your thing. But you got to do the work.
But now, hold on. Let me stop you. But what about that activist, that person that was on the PTA, like a LT? She's sitting on the PTA, and she's got folks around and saying, you organized this meeting so great. I mean, you ought to run for the local school board, though. So in that vein, but now she never did anything, but she did work in her PTA group, and she got those parents together. She made the phone call. She did the bake sale. She did everything she should do to have a groundswell of people to support the PTA. You don't think that person's ready to step out and say, look, at least I want to start maybe with the local school board, a local city council?
I don't think he said
or town council? Well, I mean, I know he's not saying that, but I'm saying, can we not still encourage those folks to still do that type of work?
Bruh, that's the work.
Well,
that is the work.
But what I think,
I
was getting ready to say, I don't think he's saying that you should not go in that regard. But I think what he's saying is that
dance without having danced.
Right, and don't get out here in 3 months and think that you have all the answers to all the problems and that you're fully equipped and ready to go run for public office and have people put their trust in you for the most sacred of their daily affairs. Yeah. And you still don't even know how to get a piece of legislation from start to finish through whatever board or body it is that you're running for.
So I think that brings up another point, because I know a group of people who'd like to be involved, but they don't know where they fit into the pathway. So if you look at, I'm locally and I do want to get involved, but how can I get engaged? What do I need to do? What does that pathway look like to go from PTA to a state representative or whatever those opportunities are? Can you kind of explain that pathway to people who may be listening who don't know where they fit in or where they could jump in?
So you remember when I talked about earlier, I talked about the issues of what matter to people, right? Mm-hmm. So when you start talking about getting involved, serving publicly, in your job, you got to provide for your family, your kids. You got to get bills, and I get people making compromises there, right? Sure. But when you serving publicly, you certainly should try to make it something that matters to you, right? Sure. Like that's the path, like whatever it is, right? And so for me, like I knew I wanted to be involved in political office, but if you're concerned about the education for kids, school board and PTA is the perfect place to be, right?
Sure.
And when you start asking questions of why can't we do this, start downloading that information, right? Start paying attention to how that happens and saying, oh, that's the roadblock. I need to make myself prepared to be there so that's not a roadblock so we can get what we need to get done, right?
So I think that's what it is. People need to hear that, because I'm telling you, there's just a group of people out there who have ideas about how they can help jump to the solution, but they don't know how to get in, how to get engaged. They feel like I'm disenfranchised. I can't be a politician, or I don't have a voice. I mean, think about the number of people who don't vote because they don't feel like they don't have a voice, let alone run for politics.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about those folks.
I'll tell you one way you start.
Though.
I'll tell you one way you start. You start by just going to a Republican or Democratic Party or Republican Party meeting and finding out what, that party, as a political party, what their position is on these issues, and you start affecting policy on the party level.
But what about those folks that don't know they're Democrat or Republican? They know that they want to help in the community.
That's
so
right.
100%. So first of all, hey, you can plug people to come to the meeting all day. I'll take anybody. So keep their plug up. Come to the local Democratic Party meetings. But I will tell you some of the people. So an issue that's going on here locally is Memphis has some of the best water in the world,
artesian water, right?
Hey, the artesian wells.
MLG&W takes care of us here, buddy.
Yeah, we took a little. We taking some of it's in Mississippi, but it's artesian wells under the city, right? And so, so have folks from Mississippi, man. So the fact is that the TVA, in order to cool some of their plants, says they want to tap into the same water we're drinking on. There's pollution issues with that, right? So people get involved in that issue because they want clean water, and they realize there's some roadblocks here locally. There's some people giving out something and allowing certain things to pass to allow them to do that, and then they find their ways to the Democratic Party meeting because the issue that they're concerned about drives them there. So whatever's important to you, whether it's you, your kids, your community, education, whatever it is, be there. Understand that issue. Be present there. And then the path will make its way, right? Like, I'm a smart dude, so I'm a little nerdy dude, so I got right, and I want to know all about the politics when I got started. But there's a lot of people that are making real big waves and doing real big things on the activist tip because they care about one particular issue, and it gets them to the table.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. Hold on, I want to follow back up on TVA. So the people who are aghast at what's happening with TVA and they're tapping into the aquifer, so you think they would pretty much go toward the Democratic Party because of some of the environmental concerns that the Democrats on a national level have had versus going to the Republican Party, where they see the party as being one that's anti-environment? Is that one of the reasons you think from a national perspective?
Potentially. What I would say is this. We have a growing, just like on the religious, a lot of people are not identifying as religious. We also have a continually growing amount of independent voters, right? Sure. When I went to that first TVA meeting here where they were calling them the task, if I looked at the people in that crowd, I would say that's a pretty independent group. There are people, I'm sure, that have voted Republican pretty frequently who are in that group that are concerned about having clean water. A lot of mothers, a lot of older people, a lot of families, right? And so what I would say is, if the Democratic Party shows strength in those areas, you can pull in people and voters, particularly at the local level, if you're going to do something about something that is important to someone. So I would say, yes, there is a path to bring some of those a lot of those independent voters and even some Republican voters in if you are present on an issue that matters to people. And so, there's a path for that. But I think that independent voting block is who decides the president every year. And frankly speaking, although people call themselves Democrats or Republicans, a lot of independent voters here locally in Memphis and Shelby County. And it's conveying to those people the stuff that matters to you. That's where I'm at.
So people are taking their politics now more a la carte than they are trying to subscribe to any particular party.
People taking everything a la carte.
Yeah, it's like there may be
music, they food,
especially food.
So, but then
bring up food.
Being the chair of a party that usually has sort of a rigid prescription of what it's about and what it's for, how do you modulate that for the a la carte political society now in order to keep them motivated enough to support you or to vote at all or to participate in the political process at all?
So all politics are local,
yes,
including those conversations where it's executed. So if I go talk to LT about something and we rapping, and she said, you talk to someone that's done multi-level marketing, how they can pivot anything you say into buying their product.
Yes, that's true.
It really ain't much different. Right. You know what I mean? Right. I'm not to give, all right.
So are you saying you have to do more hustling of people?
You got to hustle.
Okay.
But hustle in a positive way. So if I'm talking to LT about something and it's something that matters to her, there are a lot of people right now that are voters that are one issue voters, and it's finding out what that issue is and connecting with them. But you're right. Like, people are taking things a la carte, but you got to be there to have the conversation. That's the most important thing. A billboard ain't going to do it. A radio ad ain't going to do it. A flyer and a mailer ain't going to do it. It's got to be a conversation. So what I'm doing with my party is we're saying we got to have some real personal conversations. So when you at work at the water cooler and people are upset about something, it's connecting there and them believing in you to bring them to the message.
But let's look at this conundrum, though, because what we were talking about in the beginning is that you got folks like Chokwe Lumumba and Randall Woodford and LeVar Stoney, young African-American men.
Yep.
And on the other side of the coin, you've got Keisha Lance Bottoms and you have LaToya Cantrell, you have V. Lyles. African-American women, all mayors, major cities, southern states.
Yep.
Traditionally red.
Yep.
In the age of a la carte voting, how do you see yourself as a Democratic Party chair using that opportunity of all of these African-American candidates that are Democrats, by the way, in these red states? How do you see that as a way of being able to work the influence of the party in order to maybe change the landscape of the state? Or do you change the landscape of the state? Or do you just keep it that part as it is and just try to come up with a collective balance of Republican and Democratic views? How do you do that? What's your position? How do you work with that?
So 2018 in Shelby County, like I tell you, we were doing Tennessee.
Right.
The path to getting elected statewide office in Tennessee goes through Shelby County. A lot of people don't realize this.
I
They
agree
look
with
at the
you
numbers.
completely.
Oh, absolutely.
Hereford Jr. ran for Senate.
Yep.
Right.
Outperformed in Chattanooga. Outperformed in Knoxville. Did what he was supposed to do in Nashville.
Right.
Yes.
Margins were right in Memphis. Underperformed as far as turnout in Memphis. He lost by a percentage point because
Absolutely.
black people in Memphis didn't turn out.
And,
So-
and you understand why.
Right.
Because to black people in Memphis, he was never considered to be a Memphis congressman. He was considered to be a national congressman that happened to be in Memphis.
Or you might have taken him for granted and didn't go to turn him out. And
Right.
so
two
if
things.
you look
That's
at
yeah.
Woodford
Right.
in Birmingham, gets a race against an older black incumbent.
That's right.
Gets the people stirred up.
Yep.
And then now people are staying stirred up. And then a couple months later, you got a special Senate election and those same black people turn out, right? So
Like say
that's the path.
a Doug Jones or something.
Right. So for Doug Jones. So
Right.
Woodford being there and being active and having a good election for the mayoral race in Birmingham, activating those things. And then a couple months later, like, oh, we just did this, let's do it again, as opposed to we going to wait the 4 years to bring it back.
we made it
Like,
happen.
that's the thing. Yeah. And so there's a path in all these states, particularly in the South. People don't understand that the southern states have larger percentages of black people.
That's correct.
Right.
So if you go through these chocolate cities and make that happen, it can work. But the state parties have to realize, which is something I can say in Tennessee, they do realize that the path goes through these black populaces in these urban areas.
Right.
I will say this, that, with the recent resignation of Thad Cochran of the state of Mississippi, I even think the state of Mississippi now has something to look forward to.
Every
in terms of,
state, every last
in
one of
the-
those states.
Yeah,
you know.
I think they're in play. I mean, and I told, as a matter of fact, I told Tom Perez and Keith Ellison in D.C., I said that Alabama was in play back in September, and look what happened.
But look at-
now, I didn't know that this idiot over there, Roy, whatever his name was going to do what he did, but anyway, he did it.
But look at
So-
Louisiana's going to be in play. You know, I mean, if
Well,
They got a Democratic governor now.
John Bel
Louisiana's going to be in
John Bel
play.
Edwards, yeah.
Mississippi's going to be in play. Obviously, Alabama's going to be in more play. Georgia is definitely going to be in play.
Got to get these
You know,
Democratic voters out there. You got to get those
Right.
folks of us that have sat on our hands for years. Got to get them out there. Okay.
So,
There you go.
but the other part that I keep asking about this, and I ask in the same segment, how do we make sure that we get the contribution dollars? So again, you have those billionaire dollars and those small dollars to support the local and the state type politics. How do we make sure that we have the same political engine, buying power, that the Republican Party has?
So what I would say there, we aren't always going to be able to do it with the same dollars, but it doesn't necessarily always require it. So if you look at the Birmingham bus boycott, we didn't have enough money to drive people around.
Oh, you
so
didn't?
we did ride share. Some of us had to walk. We did some sacrifices. One of the things we're going to do here for the election that we have coming up in August is the first day we go to vote, it's going to be a family reunion. So everybody coming to my parents' house, we doing a fish fry, and we're going to get everybody to the polls.
right.
So I think it has to be a communal
to the
thing.
polls.
And so it can't just necessarily be. But what I would say is this. You can't hit people up for $500. You know what I'm saying? So if I come and say, hey, let me hold 5, let me hold 10 here, but you can't ask them that question if you're not delivering something of value to them. But yeah, following that Barack Obama mountain, and like I said, a lot of candidates are doing that, and I think that'll work.
You are listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network.
Funky Politics.
The off-year electorate, the midterm electorates, are older, less diverse, more conservative. You have two electorates fighting for the future of this country. And what I'd say to your viewers and people listening in is, you know what? You got to stop that older, less diverse electorate from funkying around with your future.
Funking up your airwaves and jamming the good information in your ear. Once again, it's Funky Politics.
Funky Politics. R&R on sports. Artivism. Best in blue. Funky Politics. Blues in the basement. Neighborhood Connect. Riffin' on jazz. On the Kazukian Network.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network. I'm DC, one of your hosts here on this wonderful show, sitting in with LaTanya L.T. Robinson. Hey, LaTanya, how are you?
I'm good. You know what? I'm
What?
just off a trip to Stuttgart from the weekend, and we had a wonderful
Just off a trip from Stuttgart.
Is that a trip or is that just a road? Anyway,
Did you even leave the house?
You've been to Stuttgart? Anyway.
And we had such a good time.
You had a good time?
We're doing the Sunday dinner thing again, and trying to make sure that we stay connected and all of those good things. Yeah, it's about family and this positive image of what family stands for.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Doc Ward, how are you, sir?
Doesn't it sound like
Stuttgart? Who
What's the
goes
name?
to
They used to go to St. Olaf all the time. The Golden Girls.
Now you're making me old.
No, I think he was making you something else. But
So I
anyway,
say,
St. Olaf.
tell me, as long as we're going to do this show, we're going to hear about Stuttgart.
You
So
are.
It's like St. Olaf.
You are.
Stuttgart, Arkansas. Well, you know what? Speaking of Stuttgart, Arkansas, we've got a young man.
We're never speaking of Stuttgart, Arkansas.
Never speaking of Stuttgart,
Good
Arkansas.
transition.
We got a young brother in the studio with us this evening, Corey Strong.
That doesn't know where Stuttgart,
has
Arkansas
no clue
is.
where Stuttgart, Arkansas is. Corey Strong, who's the
Yeah.
chairman of the Shelby County Democratic Party here in Memphis and Shelby County. Welcome to the program, sir. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I like how you shoehorn.
You like how she shoots horses?
You know how you shoehorn like
Oh, okay.
that transition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Speaking of
whatever.
Stuttgart, Arkansas,
Speaking of Stuttgart,
I got a dude here. My man here.
We all care about Stuttgart, but anyway.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking a little bit offline about with relationship to the work that you do with the Shelby County Democratic Party, as well as the National Party and the State Party, positive images that we've seen as of late that have been, I guess, that have really hit that foray here.
Positive African American image.
Positive African American images, especially Black Panther. Black Panther, I will say that's T'Challa. Okay, I don't know what I'm talking about. I didn't see the movie yet, but anyway, I just heard about it.
You are the last black person in America.
I'm done.
Hasn't
He got
seen Black
Juneteenth.
Panther.
He got the Black Panther Juneteenth.
Basically,
Black
that's what
Panther
it is.
Juneteenth.
That's what it is.
So I'm waiting for it to come out on DVD, whatever. Doc, what we got
You
here?
waiting on it
this?
to come out DVD. You know, there's something called Blu-ray now and a whole bunch of other things.
Or live stream. Streaming.
Yeah, there you go.
Streaming
That's no
services.
wonder he hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
Even your review, even your late reviews are late.
They don't-
I mean-
does it come out on HBO anymore?
I mean, think about it. If you had Fire Stick, it's already out there.
Oh, wow.
That's true.
Yeah.
You had
Somebody has already
We
downloaded
can tell who
it.
bootlegging over here. Yeah. I'm on the right show.
What's a Fire Stick? But anyway, Doc, you were talking about.
I was getting ready to say.
You're talking a little bit about those
Brother,
positive
you
black
know
images
Fire
we see
Stick is.
worldwide.
That's right.
That have been-
Absolutely. And because one thing we were talking about before, you were saying how getting rid of some of the old vestiges of Confederacy and everything, how important that is. Regardless of what it may mean in the long run, it's important that we eliminate a lot of those so that other images can come through. But in light of Black Panther, the unveiling of the portrait of Barack and Michelle Obama, whatever you think about the aesthetic quality of it, because there's some mixed reviews on that.
But you got to think about the one of Michelle, right? So that one is really controversial, right?
Why?
But
The portrait with the black and white gown on and all?
with the dress on, with the
Why?
with the colors and things like that.
Why?
Because so she has such beautiful skin, but they chose to use a gray overtone in that.
Oh.
So little different.
I think that was an artist, though.
It was an artist
It was an artist.
perception,
She does that.
right?
Oh, okay.
She
It was
does.
her thing.
She does
Yeah.
great
It's the
earth
artist
tones.
perception. But the thing that I love, so like there's this thing going around the internet right now about this little girl. So suddenly she's in the museum and she's watching the
yeah, I
unveiling
saw
of this
that.
portrait,
Right.
right? And she's up and she's just awestruck at seeing the first lady looking royal and regal, and what that means for her to visualize herself and what her future could be. So I think all of these things tie in.
Exactly.
That's a big word. Awestruck out of Stuttgart. You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network.
But that's the thing we're talking about when you have so many positive images now of African Americans after you had this.
But not
dirt.
now, but forever. You've
had them, but you
Forever.
don't. Yeah, but they haven't come along so frequently, and they haven't been, as they have now, and not to the grand level. Because when you talk about a movie like Black Panther, and I've told this to someone before, this is the Shaft of our time. I don't know how many Academy Awards it's going to win or may not win. It's really not designed to be sort of that Academy Award-y type movie. But there's not a person that's probably the age of 45 and up that does not know what Shaft was, or know who John Shaft was, because of what he represented in terms of the type of character he was, the type of detective he was, what he did. It was a higher level. And as we go forward, celebrating diversity all the day long in this cultural war society, particularly from a Democratic side, because they are the more inclusive party, or you strive to be. How important do you think it is that we have these images of the president coming out, the portraits, and then the Black Panther movie, and then Jordan Peele, for God's sakes, win an Oscar for a movie that was really not, even though it had a large budget, was not anyway slated to be part of that Oscar success. How important is that we see so much African American achievement all at one time for the political side? How important is it? How important is that right now, especially for coming from someone that's leading a party in the South?
So I think it's a big piece. Before I knew what a Democrat was, I was black, and long after I'm gonna be black. So, and I think it is important to see positive images because it gives black people a sense of strength, right? Authority, right? I was listening to a Ryan Coogler interview as a director that did the movie, and he was talking about going to Africa and visiting, and some of the things that we are necessarily ashamed of, but in Africa are their actual like habits, right? So when you drive around and you see people sitting out in the corner, you'll see someone in the neighborhood like, y'all need to be out in the corner because we've been taught being in a group and being strong or showing some intimidating people is a bad thing. And Coogler said when he was in Africa, that's something you did at the household. You put your children out front, so when people roll by, they said, you strong. That's your future, right?
Wow.
And so, and so, like we've been disconnected from what is culturally ours, and a lot of the things he said, hey, these are things that we actually got from Africa, and they were important to us. And so, the point is, they see that as a sense of strength. If we see images like that provide a sense of strength, then we'll not depend on a political party, to do that for us. We will anchor that strength, and a political party will then come to us because they see us as a valuable voting bloc because we understand and we have some sense of authority for our own communities and our own destiny.
See, Corey, I see that exemplified in you. Just think about the 2016 election when our candidates were Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, both over 70, white.
She wasn't over 70.
She was 75.
She was close.
She was
75.
No, she was in her 60s.
No.
Oh, she looks 70 though. Go ahead.
Okay. I have to look at that. But the thing is though, so that's been the representation of the Democratic Party, right? Old and white. So it's what's so funny.
Go to your point. Don't worry about it, LT.
But it's refreshing though.
First she aged Hillary, and it's just old and white. That's all.
So it's refreshing to see a chair that is a young African American who can draw other people to the party, who can draw that diversity. So how do you get more people like you to step up into these roles?
Well, I think first of all, there has to be a clear delineation between doing it for the purpose of yourself and self-promotion, self-aggrandizement, just to be in the seat and getting work done.
Yeah,
it ain't a lot of people so my parents both grew up picking cotton, all right? So dad was driving a tractor 8. Mom tells stories about teasing the older brother because if he didn't fill his 100-pound bag up, they was both gonna get in trouble. Right. So like that's what I was raised in. So I was raised in the city, but we still shuck corn every summer, shell peas. Mom put them up, huh? Like you know what we do, right? You know what I'm saying? I still gotta go see my aunt. Yeah, probably Stuttgart. So we is connected. It's like, but the point is, you got to do the work, and I think that's where people have to understand is you don't just show up and say, hey, this is what we're gonna do. I do like what Barack Obama has done in inspiring a group of people to say, hey, this is something I can do and be a part of, but you have to like prepare yourself. You got to show up prepared. And I think that's the most important thing.
You are listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kadzukian Network. We talk about preparation. We talk about all of these things today, and we've seen it on the large scale, in the mass media. But now we've had leaders for years, for decades. In the late 1800s and the early 1800s, we've had them all over the place. Now we weren't able to access them. Yeah, we did. You had unsung heroes in every community out there.
Oh well, okay.
You have unsung.
I'll go for that.
And I think what we have done now is with the rising of the Black Panther, all of these movies out there. But now, what about the rising of some of those major leaders coming up in the party locally here? Do we have a lot of those unsung heroes that are stepping up right now that you've seen so far?
So we have a few. There has been kind of a lack of willingness for some of the older generation to groom people behind them, and yes. I think that's legacy.
That's why I want to go with this. That's why
legacy is important, right? Yes. And so you do have to put a legacy behind. You have to do the work out front and say, hey, who's going to replace me? Who's going to carry this mantle, or who can improve on the process that I laid down, right?
Sure.
Well, why do you think that is?
I mean, it's a number of reasons. I think when you ain't never had nothing, and that's what some people dress so. Well, you never had nothing. When you get something, you want to give it up. And, it's relevance, right? But I would also say another thing, and I think this is important. This is a fundamental orientation difference between our community and other communities. That pulpit preacher, or you a politician or whatever, that's the shining star, right? White politicians ain't the shining star.
No,
it's the business person that tells them what to push across. That's the shining star, right? And so we got the game messed up, right? I'll give you an example. Barack Obama library wants to do it with a minority contractor. They had to put 4 black construction companies together. He had to create a consortium just to build that building. So the point is, if black politicians today in Memphis or anywhere else said, hey, we got the money, we got the funding, we got the setup, do we have the businesses ready to receive that and execute it? And the answer is no. In their communities, the politicians aren't the ones that do it. They say, I want to build this. You figure out how to get a funded politician and we good to go. And so it's just, we got the game messed up. We're like totally disoriented. And so one of the things I'm working on here is I'm not working with politicians. I'm having conversations with young professionals saying, hey, yo, like, if we go down here and get this set up, I need you to be prepared, because that's what they doing on the other side. Every time a TIF shows up or some tax plan and they can create business, whatever, seems like a business just shows up with a plan.
Yeah.
Like it just happened.
Yeah.
They been did that. They was two years ago working on that.
They been did that.
Oh, come on,
He ain't
now.
lying. Hold on.
Funky politics, he know he's speaking to.
When you're a Naval Academy graduate, you can say stuff like been done that.
They been
I'll
did
do that in uniform.
No, I'm not. No, I
get your point, though.
I get
you're
it 100%.
right.
I get it 100%. I get it.
They come to the table already with the plan that they, oh God, this is new. No, it's not new. They worked on this for some time.
But what it comes down to, but there's another element to that.
What is that?
Both of you, is that when we went back to earlier, you said, what do you have to do to get into politics? We have to, and I would say African Americans, I said a million times, we have to establish and forge an agenda of what we want to see.
100%.
And you have to stop working off of someone else's agenda.
Absolutely.
You have to look into the neighborhoods that were built for us, by us, so long ago, and see the dilapidation and the blight that's existing. And those of us that have means have to say, I want to make a change, and this is what I want to do. Instead of waiting on someone else to build another neighborhood that you have no connection to, and you can hopefully get a scrap of a piece of a contract to do something in that neighborhood. We have to be more proactive in what we want to see.
I'm going to hit you with 2 things. So people my age.
Hit me. Sure.
If you look at people my age, black people my age, they're trying to live their parents' dream.
Right.
They want to go to the suburbs. White people my age are going to the same communities we trying to get out of.
There you go.
Right? So gentrification, right? So they understand I know how to build wealth because they've been taught that.
Absolutely.
We trying to get out the hood, they trying to get in the hood.
Right.
But the second thing is when you talk about, okay, how do I orient that in a way where, like we create that wealth? If we don't spend the time, I had a conversation with a young lady and we were talking about in your community, like how do I do the thing that matters in my community?
Right.
Close some grocery stores here, right? And so I talked to a young lady who's like, I'm working to do activism in that particular area. And I said, baby, you got an education. Why don't you build a grocery store?
There you go.
Why don't you make the concept so good they can't turn away from it? Because the city's going to do it before you do it. And it's going to be built by some people that don't look like us, for some people that don't look like us, and we're going to get shut out. Why don't you make the idea so good and you got the people with you so that when the city wants to build it and say, no, we want to build our own thing and they got to fund it. You too smart for that, baby. And so she gets it. And she's like, I don't know. And I said, I promise you, if you do that, no one's ever. Have you ever seen anybody do it? Nope. Would it help your community? Yeah.
Wow.
Then that's where you need to be.
Right.
And but the reality of that is that same woman who has that dream and that desire doesn't know how she's going to get the funding. And so it's helping to bring all of those things together. She can have the greatest business plan in the world, but if she doesn't have the financial backing, it doesn't become a reality. So how do we help with that, with the contracts and things like that?
Now that is something I agree with. Okay. But I think there's enough of us that have the.
There you go.
I know some contract lawyers.
There you go.
Like if Barack Obama could put a consortium together to build his library, we can build a grocery store.
Now is the time for the shameless plug. We know it's Marcus D. Ward PLLC, my law firm. That's what we do all day, but that's what other people also do all day. But the bottom line, I've said this on the show 1,000,001 times.
Did you say shameless plug?
Yeah, we ain't shameless. I want you to come do our business. We put people in business, and we help people to get money. There's money all over the place, federal, state, and local, and otherwise. But we have to, by all means, as African Americans, we have to fool with each other. And we've got to we got to fool with each other. We got to fool with each other. We got to be in connection with each other, and it's got to be intentional. And it's got to be intentional because guess what? And I'll say it before I say it again, because there are people out here that are trying to get you out of business because you're African American.
Absolutely.
So we've got to make sure that we are always connected to each other in a funky kind of way.
I hear you.
Give you the last word there, Mr. Chairman. Where can they go to get any information here from a local to a national to a state perspective on what the Democrats are doing around the country?
So DNC.org for the Democratic Party at the national level. At the local level here in the Memphis, Tennessee, Shelby County area, go to shelbydem.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. You hit us up there. And the last plug I tell for people in this election season 2018, it's not going to get done unless we do it. Voting is not a solo sport. It's a team sport, right? And so most of us.
Say that again.
Voting is not a solo sport. It's a team sport. Most of us that's voting, that's talking about the problems in the black community particularly, Open Our Door can't see the black community. Mm-hmm. That's another whole podcast, right?
Wow.
So the point is, those people that you're advocating for, your cousins you don't talk to, the one that get your hair products when you go see your grandmama, if you're not taking them to the polls, all that stuff you writing online is lip service. It's not a solo sport. Take the team with you.
And it's also a contact sport.
If it ain't
contact all your people and get them to the polls.
What do you just say?
Hold on, I'll write that down. Hold on. Yeah.
If it ain't done, we got to do it. If it ain't done, we got to do it. You're listening to Funky Politics right here on the Kadzukian Network.
Funky Politics. Artivism.
Artivism features conversations with artists, creatives, and citizens working at the intersection of art and social activism. And I'm Linda Steele, your host. I'm a grant maker, change maker, social venture capitalist, and I invest in individuals and projects that use the arts as a vehicle for social change.
Artivism on the Kadzukian Network. Kadzukian! Funky Politics.
We're back with the Funky Politics show on the Kadzukian Network. You know what? I tell you what, if I have to sit and listen to a young brother talk about politics, about how Democrats, how Republicans can work together, but how you can get right-thinking folks doing the right thing, I'd rather hear from this young brother, Corey Strong, man. He's deep, man. He's a deep brother. You know what I'm saying, man?
I know what you're saying. But I think the most important thing, and amongst all of the things that he said, he talked about what it took for you to become active in your area.
Your local area.
Your local area. Because all politics are local.
That's right.
Everything begins with the local cause. If you ever saw the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
That's right.
He didn't go to Washington because of Washington's issues. He went to Washington because issues that were going on in his own community. And that's what's going to get us there. So whether you're starting from the grassroots or whether you have some big complex cause, I think one thing that we can learn, or some things we can learn, is, first of all, understand your electorate. Know what policy, how it works, and how to get things done, and have your own agenda. We have to have our own agenda. You can't wait and work off someone else's agenda. You have to have your own agenda and work that agenda. You're not going to pass. You're not going to always succeed. Sometimes you're going to fail. But the important thing is that you keep moving always.
And figure out where you jump into the process. So whether it's jobs, education, or healthcare, or something else that interests you, identify what's important to you and become a part of the process so that your voice matters, your vote matters, your money matters. Step into the process.
And as we said before, what did he say? Politics was a team sport.
It is a team sport.
And a contact
sport.
That's right.
You see it need to be done? Get it done. Do it.
Get your team together and contact as many folks as you can. Get your cause heard. Understand what it takes to get it there. And always remember, whatever it is you do, keep it real, keep it right, and keep it what, folks?
Funky.
And you will never, ever lose.
Funky Politics executive producer Larry Robinson for Kadzukian. Hosted by Daryl D.C. Catron and Marcus M.D. Ward.
Talent booking, Miko Horn.
Funky Politics recorded at Kadzukian Studio. Directed, produced, recorded, and distributed by Kadzukian.